Hello, everybody. Welcome. So Sue and myself have started this series on the essential elements of well-being. So we're doing weekly chats around well-being because we both feel that the one thing within our control is how we feel. We can't control what happens, but we can control how we feel. So today, what we're talking about is small habits around eating. Have you got anything to add before I go into this?
Oh yeah, I love this one because I think that it's so important to understand our energy levels and how we can really take care of those so that we can operate well and with well-being in the day. So yeah, excited to hear your thoughts, Bridget.
So I thought what was very interesting is when you and I spoke about this just casually last week, and you were saying, yeah, I mean, I know what to do and I know what I should be doing. However, I don't really do that. And I was like, what? Not in it. Sorry, that's not quite judgmental, not in a judgmental way. But when I look at you, you just look like you do the whole thing.
The whole lot.
You do. You completely do. So
every night.
Exactly. So that's why we thought this was really a really good topic, because it really is. It's the small things. So one of the points is around doing something small every single day. So if you take that with your life, how would you implement that into your life?
Yeah, I love the idea of something small. I think because as coaches, we know sometimes if we bite off more than we can chew, we actually overestimate our ability to change. And so finding something small that you can really start to rewire for yourself. So you're rewiring your brain and your processes and your habits ultimately, I think is really important. So one thing that I have this longing to do, I have this longing to be the person that chops up vegetables at some stage in the day before that sort of 4 o'clock grazing happens for me at about 4 o'clock. And then I'll go to the fridge and I'll pick whatever's there. But apparently there's this great idea to just chop, get some carrots and some peppers and whatever it is, and actually just make sure that they're available. So it's about, I think, playing with the availability of what's there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that for me would tie into what you're surrounded with. So if you are surrounded with, this is going to sound so bizarre, but if you're surrounded with like vegetables and fruit, like in my fridge, it's literally a lot of vegetables, bit of fruit. So that's kind of my go-to, because that is all that is in my surroundings. And it's a mission. Well, it's not a mission, but I'm not getting in my car and drive. I'm just not going to do it,
Yeah.
So I suppose that ties in.
Putting a barrier between you and the chocolate.
Exactly. Because then it becomes automated. Like for me, for example, to exercise every day, and I think you're also an exercise person, is so automated for me. I don't think it's not something, it's not a habit. It's not something that it's a habit, but it's not something that I've got to go, oh, hang on a minute, let me actually be disciplined, because it's automated. And I think this kind of ties in with that. If you can make it automated, then it helps.
Yeah, so I think it's Nur Ale. He says, remove the barriers from the good habits and put barriers between the bad habits. So one of the ideas he gave was to actually wear half of your gym kit to sleep at night. So you're really wanting to make the whole thing as you don't want any barriers to, oh no, I don't really feel like doing that. You just want to make it as simple as possible until you're in that proper habit of doing things well. But I had one other idea that I came across that I thought was also more of just a shift, which we touched on in our last session also, which is just eating according to the clock, and I really sort of got a reframing of why it's so important around energy. So if you think about it, the reason, they've always said, have a big breakfast, wake up, have a big breakfast. Many of us don't feel like a big breakfast, but actually that's when you need your energy. You need your energy at breakfast and at lunch, and you don't need your energy at night. And so it really, for me, something just a penny dropped around that. So, for me, it might be just a little bit of a shift of just portioning more towards the earlier meals and making the evening meal a little lighter, even if that's not something I can do for the whole family. It's something that makes sense to me in terms of the energy that I need for the day.
Absolutely. I think also, if you're tying in rewards, because we all like to be rewarded. So when I think of a reward, and I don't know if this is a reward, but when I think about a reward, I think about the way that it makes me feel. So when I eat, because I'm very connected to my body, and I get not everybody is, I totally respect that as well. But when you eat something and it makes you feel a certain way, for me, that in a strange way is kind of a reward, assuming it makes me feel the way that I want to feel, as opposed to when you eat something and you don't feel great, oh, that's not great. So I don't know how one can become more self-aware of that, but possibly, I don't know if you connect with that. Are you connected to that immediate feeling? And is that enough of a reward to make you want to do it or not do it again?
Yeah, I think it's such a good point. And as coaches, we always love the reflective space. And I think to become more in tune with, how's that working for me? So, often a little diary where you can just write down how you're feeling, and then just track, well, maybe I was feeling a bit down on one day, what was the precursor to that? That can be really helpful. And obviously, we love broadening that into other spheres as well. But I think reflection is super important. And then just a sense of mindfulness I got from what you were saying is, it's preferable, of course, always to be conscious of what you're doing in the moment and not in an automated, whether it's responding to an email or a behavior or something that you see, just starting to build that awareness. So if it's awareness around feelings, and awareness around eating is also important. Tasting the food, understanding whether you're hungry versus thirsty, knowing when you're full. Those are all really important things. When your body is asking for something, we need to tune into that and try and be present with it. So yeah, reflection and mindfulness, I suppose, come in here as well.
That, and it's that thing of repeat, resilient, reinforce. So it's the RRR. I think that is something, because it's, once you're doing it, if something becomes repetitive, then it just again becomes easier, because then you build up the resilience and then it's reinforced. So the less work you have to do. I also think it's interesting to have an accountability person. So, and I don't mean that in a, I don't mean like maybe your husband saying to you, oh, but I thought you said you were never gonna. I don't mean like that. I don't mean that, no one needs that in their life. Like, no one needs that. But that kind of thing that, maybe you've spoken to a friend or to your partner and said, I'm really wanting to, I don't know, cut down on this or do more of that. And that person in a very nice way might say to you, hey, so how's that going? How are you finding that? That in itself makes you kind of want to make sure you're on track, because you've kind of made this commitment and you want to show up. And I don't know, that can be quite helpful.
It's a really important piece of change, isn't it? I mean, it's something that coaches can be that also in a process. They can, help you to stay accountable to the goals that are important. But having other people to support your process, very important point.
Exactly. So just to sort of conclude from this, if you are, because as we're going into December, it's a little bit more challenging, So as we're going to the holidays, just know that they used to say that a habit takes 21 days or something. It actually is 60 for a complex habit. It's 66 days, apparently. So it does take time. And if you fall off the wagon one day, that's also okay. None of this is trying to be perfect, but it's just about staying mindful about what it is that you do want.
Lovely. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. So if you are listening and you are wanting to know more about your well-being and you'd like some guidance and support around that, please contact us. And we will be back next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yes.